OuterOrange.
Shadowverse just came out with a new collab set called Idolm, and you might be wondering, oh my god, they will run all these different colors. What in the world do you build? Today, I am here to help you be able to build your decks. Today, we're going to be going over cool, cute, and passion with some builds and just kind of talk about the decks in general, what they're capable of, and sort of what cards to look out for, and how to even maybe play the deck. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, fam, hello. We're starting with cool today. So let me explain what this deck is capable of. This is basically a rush-oriented deck where it can kind of just aggro you and kill you before you have a chance to do anything. It also has some mid-range aspects of it as well, depending on the deck build. I will say there's a lot of ways to approach this deck, and at the end of the day, it's kind of up to your play style, what you're looking for. I'll tell you like 3 quick things about it. There's search-oriented decks where you're basically constantly looking for pieces to constantly refill board. There's combo-oriented decks where you're playing Anastasia, you're playing the 4-drop ward, and you're also playing the 1-drop nature forest card that lets you basically bounce your whole board back on top of recovering your play points. Well, it's not the whole board, it's like a portion of the board, but you basically recover play points. You have a constant board presence, you're bouncing cards to get your combo going, and basically creating a very lethal board state where Anastasia buffs everything. And then there's the last version where you go super monkey brain and you just have a bunch of 1-drops and you just play into the 1-drops as much as you can, and then eventually find other pieces mid to late game to try and finish off. Sure, this is a deck that really likes to close out as quickly as it can, and it has to keep in mind that it's going to get a board cleared, and that the deck needs to know how to respond to that. So this is a variant that I kind of made. I will say it's not perfect, and like I said, every person has different play style. Some people value spells, some people don't. This is the version I went with. This is a mix of like a couple things. There's some decks that don't even run Rin at all, like they just completely cut the engine for Rin and just run other cards. There's some decks that run more storm heavy cards. There's some decks that run a bunch of 1-drops, and some do run Anastasia, which is this card. Some don't run Anastasia. This build mainly focuses on having some early aggro, but then going into the mid to late game, you still have a way to recover. We also run Layla. Layla is an insanely good card, as she basically finds all the cards that you need, be able to filter through your deck and find what you need, and basically deck them to then draw into better cards potentially. Like I say, you can change it up. Your main focus is this girl right here. You basically want to drop her with a board and basically give something else storm, and then you can lessen to make her do more damage. And basically, you ideally usually want to give storm to her, but it won't always happen. Sometimes you'll just have to give storm to something else. You also have another storm card here that kind of helps push for, you know, more damage early on. Also, she works with Rin as well. And also keep in mind, Rin, if Rin and Mio are both on the board, you can also deal 5 damage to the leader, which is a very, very impactful turn because that's basically about 7 damage you're taking if you have 6 mana and you play her and you play Mio, because Mio has storm, and then this card will deal 5 damage. So it's a very, very scary play, so definitely be cautious of. We also run the other half. This is the one that basically lets you heal, and she also has an evolve that basically lets you search for Mio or Rin. So like I said, this is the Mio Yuzuki Rin package. Like I said, there are decks out there that just completely don't run this package at all, or maybe they run the storm card, nothing else, and instead they're running the 4-drop ward and running like a bit of a different engine. There's some decks that have more 1-drops in the deck and kind of focus more towards that aspect, where they just have a bunch of 1-drops and they kind of go that approach. Some people cut Kanade out completely. She's the girl that for 2 lesson you get to select really far to field and deal it 4. She's really good to kind of remove some cards, kind of have like a little bit of removal package. I really like this card. This is Nagi. She says on Fenrir you can banish 2 1-drops, and you get 2 effects out of her 3. You can select an far to the field and destroy it, completely kill it off. It could be anything. So if you're fearful of some kind of big dude on the board, you can kill it. You deal 2 damage to the enemy leader, and then you can also draw a card and discard a card. You have to pick one, and you have to pick 2 of the 3. Ideally, you probably won't pick the 3rd one. You'll probably pick the 1st and the 2nd one, but sometimes the 3rd one will come up. And then for a lesson, you can also give her a rush and slap her, so smash her into something. She's a good like splashable card, but she's not mandatory. You can easily cut this card and add a Layla. You can cut this card and add like, I don't know, the 1-drop. This card that lets you grab the 1-drop spells, and the 1-drop spells are basically snipes with additional effects. They can do 3 if you have basically extra cards, but ideally it's just a snipe. For the most part, you have this card that basically recovers play points. You get to draw, and if you have Anastasia on the board or something with the 5 cost or higher, you get to recover play points, which is super important. The combo you ideally want to go for. If you drop Anastasia, you recover 2 play points. You drop, like, say, this card for another play point, and then you'll use the lesson off of this to bounce something back to then buff Anastasia again, which will basically recover you 2 more play points. Then you play Goddess by the Sunlight C, because at that point you already have all your play point conditions, so you'll recover another play point, and then at that point you should be at combo 5. 5 and you buff your board. Prior to that, you can also drop Neo to kind of fully fulfill the combination. And then if you run the ward girl, you can also again drop her as a ward, and she has like a stats, and then buff up your board that way. Kind of up to you which approach you want to go, but that's basically the combo end of the deck that you can do. You can also play like the amulet as well, kind of in between all that, and draw some cards. Keep in mind this also draws you a card, which is really good. You really do want to draw. This deck does have a thing where once it runs out of steam, it starts losing. And that's why decks like Cute tend to beat it, because once it's out of steam, it's out of steam. You'll notice that the 5-drop cool card is actually cut from this list. You'll see this a lot in some decks, and some decks run it, some decks don't. The issue with her is that she can whiff you sometimes and kind of not close out, but if you're going for a more monkey brain build where you're just constantly just trying to fill board as much as possible, that build is also not bad as well. Also, there is another card you can run. It's the 7-drop. It's a dragon card. It's really good. It gets a 3 and a 1 onto the board. Ideally, you'll always get this and this, right? So you have your 3 and 1 on the board, and you basically can just fill up a board that way. She also, I believe, pings either damage or something on the follower on the board as well every single time you play cards. So also just a really good card as well. So like I said, there's multiple different ways you can kind of build this deck. It's just kind of up to you. There's also, I think, a 4-drop spell you can run that also finds you cards as well. Finds you one, I believe, that you can also play it. It's either a unit or a spell. I don't remember its exact thing. It's in the trial deck, if I remember correctly, but it's another card you can run. Also, let's talk about this card. This is like one of the strongest cards in this deck right now. It is just Karen. At the start of your end phase, if there are no other cool bars in the field, she deals herself a damage. Keep in mind, you can just drop this on turn 1. She will deal herself a damage, but she's still at 3-1. So next turn, she can swing for 3. This is definitely the card you should be kind of scared of the most. We want this card off the board as fast as possible. She's very lethal. This is another card to be a little bit fearful of because she evolves into a 3/3, and you can drop her turn 1, evolve her next turn, and swing for 3, similar to this card. The difference is this doesn't ping herself. Yeah, she costs a little bit more, but she, in terms of her evolve, but she doesn't ping herself, so she can stay on the board for a little bit longer, versus this card will eventually die. But this is one of the stronger decks, in my opinion, out of the 3. It is the strongest deck by far. This deck can be very scary. I will say, if you have constant removal, you're presenting constant removal, this deck definitely falls off pretty hard into decks like that. So if you can turtle, like if you have a way to turtle your deck a little bit where you're healing a ton, they will eventually run out of copies. Like if they run out of the 1-drops, they kind of just don't do anything anymore because they're running out of search targets. And if they run out of this, they kind of get screwed a little bit. So long story short, if you can turtle this deck, you usually will win, but you do need to like be very careful. This deck can randomly swing for like 15 damage out of nowhere. And like I said, it can be very scary. So be on the lookout for this. That's cool. Let's go over to Q. Q is what I like to call the turtle deck. Again, this deck is mainly soft, but there are a couple of things you can move around. You can put in the Winter Knight. It's another good card kind of to throw in. It's a banish card. It's basically Acolyte, but just for Idolmaster. You could, but basically this is Cute's, and Cute's idea is to basically just heal a ton and kind of out heal your opponents or whatever they're trying to do. This deck is really good. It's a cool in my opinion, because you can just turtle and turtle and turtle and eventually win off of turtling. And you'll eventually will like kind of out basically they'll run out of steam, or unless they're playing a little bit slower, but they'll basically just run out of steam and you'll eventually win off of that. This is a very like, I would say like kind of like a time deck. Like you will be alive for a while. You'll notice there's like this max 10 point card here. You'll actually get to this card, like meaning like this card will proc. Like that's how long you'll usually live. So this deck lives for a while. I will say I would be very cautious of this deck if you're like playing like a rush deck, because a rush deck just gets murdered by a deck like this. And it sucks. Like is the best way to put it. Like Egg actually really struggles with a deck like this because they're constantly healing. It's a struggle. Now I will say this deck doesn't really have a win con unless you're running Kyoko. Kyoko's a way out. So she heals. She also draws cards, but also her eval is really good. She's kind of hard to clear. She gets really annoying. Also, I believe Nini's really good too, because she also revives cards that are in your cemetery. There's a couple versions, but basically this deck's focus is to heal a ton and then eventually kill you. And it just takes a while. Like I said, there's different variations of this deck you can build. You don't need to run necessarily exactly all this. I've seen some lists completely cut Karen out or run her at 1 to then, add like other good cards. Some don't run Kyoko at all in their build. Some people have this higher. A lot of healing, and this is my favorite card in the deck. It's kind of just a funny card. It's just Sakari. Like the fact that on play you just heal, and if you have 10 maximum points, you can deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. That's really funny is whenever this follower takes at least 5 damage, you can increase your play points by 1. So if your opponent early just doesn't know and tries to nuke her, you'll just randomly like up your damage for no reason. So, and she also has ward on her, so it's just funny. It's just funny how this card is. She's very annoying. You have to kind of play around her a little bit. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to kill her when your opponent's going to 10 anyway, but then that means you're also playing for the long game. A little weird. The Q package just basically lets you find more Q cards and you get rush abilities. This card's pretty good because it has the minus ability on it, and then she also pluses, and then she gives you health, and then you can, this card just revives like a ton, which is also really good. And then I talked about Nini, but Nini basically on evolve, she's a little costly, but on evolve you basically can revive any Q follower in your cemetery, and that's really powerful because you can basically just, you know, return back whatever you want. Ideally, you want to probably go after one of the Q cards, or you want to go after Kyoka if possible, or Kyoko. Kyoko is just a really good card. Her ability is good. She's on evolve. You can select a follower in the field and engage or refresh it. During turn, this follower just doesn't take any damage. So you can like swing into things and just kind of go wild with her. I also really like Yue. Yue is probably my favorite card in the entire set right now. She is just so much value for basically 4 to 6 mana, depending on what you're doing. On play, you can just like straight up like remove one of the magical tokens and just deal something 4, which is basically killing a lot of stuff early on for a 4-drop. She's a 3/3, but for evolving for 2, she gets you any 3 cost or less spell in your deck and basically play for free that turn. It goes into the EX zone, so make sure you use the lesson. Be careful how you do it. If your EX zone is full, you can't grab the spell. Well, you can, but then nothing happens, right? So you don't get it in the EX zone. I think it just dies. I think it just goes into the cemetery at that point because it has nowhere to go. But anyway, what's really important is you basically grab Center Street, and then Center Street says, because you play for free, that you select an enemy fall on the field, deal with 5, and then if you have Passion Fall on the field, you draw a card, and Yue is a Passion Follower, so this will always proc, basically. So realistically speaking, if you remove the lesson and you evolve her, you basically get 2 dudes, you remove 2 dudes on the board, and then you can just swing the evolve horn of Yue into something, and basically you're clearing 3 bodies, and there's 3 pretty good bodies that you're clearing because you're clearing a 4, a 5, and whatever, and another 5 basically, and that's a lot of value off of basically 4 to 6 mana depending on how you play it out, and 1 lesson. So it's a really good. I really like this card because, like I said, it just gives you a lot of value for 1 card, but the fact that she can clear so much is just really nice. So let's go over to Passion. This deck is oriented on a high roll package where like mid to late game you're just kind of insane if you just your board just gets massive. I will say like Themistic Reed, stuff like that can just clear it out of nowhere, but they have to answer it. There's so many ways to build this deck. I went towards the cookie cutter build. I think this is the cookie cutter build basically. If you just don't know how to build this deck and you need somewhere to start, this is the cookie cutter build. You can put the made spell over this card if you want. I just prefer units because I had situations where I did the effects, and then if you basically, I'll explain a little bit, but if you see 2 spells back to back with your effects, you can't actually resolve some of your effects. It kind of sucks. So I cut back spells. But basically this deck just draws a ton, and then eventually leads to the 6-drop here, which is where kind of the insanity and the craziness of the deck starts. On play, you get to look at top 2, you summon 1, you basically bury the other one just goes into your cemetery. It's really huge because you can actually proc herself off of herself. So if you go Mio into Mio, then you go Mio again into like another card, right? And a lot of these cards have a lot of Fenfair abilities, and they basically have abilities that stack on top of each other. So you'll go her into another copy of her into something else, and then like you'll proc like another ability like search or ping or do whatever, heal, whatever it is that you're trying to draw a card. You can go like a couple different routes. Also, you can revive from your cemetery, so even if you're killing a card into your cemetery, it's really good. Now here's the downside of this card, which I found out like literally yesterday. If you're running too many spells, which is at some point I was trying out Whispers of a Dream in this deck, and I found out that if you run too many spells, if you go Whispers of a Dream into Center Street, nothing happens because you have nothing to summon. It really sucks. So I recommend sticking to less spells. I think 3 is a good sweet spot. So that's my personal recommendation. You do you. I don't think the high roll is worth it. I didn't even think it was possible to hit 2 spells back to back, but I did. So I was like, damn, I'm not even running. I was running 6. I basically cut this card out for Whispers of a Dream just to try it out, and just so I have like some early nuke capabilities. I found out that was a mistake, so I pushed Shinsato back basically. So that's the main high roll of the deck. There is something more you can do. So you can go Mio into the new Storm card. This card's insane. She's an 8-drop, but you can cheat her out. She has Storm on her. You have less than 3. You can discard 2 passion cards, deal 6 damage to every follower on the field, or draw 2 cards. So basically, you discard 2, drawing 2, board clearing, and then swing for 7. So much value in 1 card. You can do this on turn 6, by the way, but of course it's a high roll engine, so you have to high roll into it, but you have a chance of, getting there. Keep in mind, there's actually something else you can do. If your opponent doesn't clear your board, which they should be, but if they happen to brick or not be able to get there, this card can also cheat out your high drops as well. This card just says, rest 3 passion flowers on your field. That includes herself, and you may summon a passion flower from your hand, and at the end of, it gets the ability at the end of the, at the start of your end phase, you bounce it back to your hand. What's really interesting about this is, yes, you can call this card out, blow up the board, bounce it back, could do it again next turn. Now you won't be able to do the lesson again because you'll be out of lessons, but you will be able to just storm your opponent for 7 every single turn, as long as they just don't clear your board. They do have to clear your board. If they clear your board, this deck really starts struggling. If they're not answering your board, you can just randomly just pop off like crazy. So definitely try to clear the board as much as you possibly can. There's also this card right here. This is Ico. This card's absolutely insane in my opinion. It's just a really good card. It sucks that she's restricted to mainly passion cards. If this like was more generic, this card would just be bonkers. Basically says on fanfare, you look at top 3, reveal 1 passion card, put the other 2 at the bottom. The one you reveal goes to your hand. But she has another ability. It's her evolve, which is really good. For evolve 1, you basically summon a passion ball where the 3 cost res from your hand. That is so good because you can summon Shinsato, which draws you a card, and her second ability is really good. Like her evolve is really good. Your opponent has to clear this card. If they don't clear this card and you evolve, oof, you're not gonna be a happy person. You can proc the storm card, Natalia. I'm not the biggest, I just like my least favorite card in the deck. It's only it's a storm for 1. It can ping. There's a little I wish there was a better card to put in the slot. There isn't. There is like a couple cards, but they're not like that great in my opinion. So this slot's kind of weird. You can proc this card. I'm actually testing this card at 3 right now because on fanfare you can heal for 2, and she's a 2/5, and then you can also heal for 4 if you have 5 passion flowers in your cemetery. Just a really good value. You can also throw this card down. She pings if you have 3 dudes on the board already, so she's really useful as well in that aspect. Her evolve is also really good, but you won't evolve hard because you already evolved this. Yeah, that's basically the main 3 drops. You can run other techs if you want, but keep in mind you have to call a passion card. So you can't, call something else. You can realistically like play this card too, like on fanfare. If you have the ability to, you can kind of like, give her extra power. I can also call this card. This card's actually really good too. If you have at least 5 passion followers, you can actually get a card from select a follower from your cemetery, add your hand. It says any follower. It doesn't say specifically a passion follower. You have to have 5 passions in your grave, but you don't have to pick up a passion follower, which is very important. For basically 3 mana, you have a 1 drop on the board and you're getting a card back that you may need. You realistically usually go after Mio every single time because this card's just insane. I didn't talk about her second effect. It says you can do her effect again. So realistically speaking, if you're on an 8 mana play, you can play her, play another lesson for 2 and 2 mana. You can do it again. That's pretty insane. You can basically refill a board out of nowhere, and it's very aggressive. Now you'll notice I'm also running Yui. We talked about Yui earlier. Really good board clear. Also, she's deck thinning you cards, and also say you bottom deck some really good stuff. Like say you bottom deck something good with her. There's a couple other searchers and stuff. So just say you bottom deck like some cards you really want back. She lets you shuffle, which I think is the most important part. The shuffle matters a lot. Actually, you actually really want to shuffle. Say you bottom decked all of these or something, bottom decked all your storm cards, and you kind of want it back, so you can get it back with the shuffle. There's one more card I want to talk about, which is Kiari. This is kind of one of those cards where you can run it, but you don't have to run it. You can probably put some other cards in this slot, but like I said, this is more of a cookie cutter build. I like this card. She does have some problems. So this card says cost 3 less to play if you have 1 drop on the board, just board, and then on fanfare you refresh each follower on your field. Now you might be wondering, when in the world would that ever happen? So basically speaking, you can do it with this card, but this card bounces it back. So even though you reset all your stuff, she's not doing anything. What she can do, which is the super high roll aspect of this, say your stuff lived for a turn, like say like this card, maybe something else lived, and then you proc the lesson effect off of her, or you play another Mio, for example, and you find this card, and so basically what you do is you say you have a couple cards on the board, you swing with all of them first, then you play another Mio, and then Mio finds you this card. Everything you just swung with is now restanding, and then you can swing again. And it's really high roll. I'm talking like this is like top level high roll stuff like here. Like this won't happen that often, but if it does, you usually have game. Is the best way to put it. Like if you're restanding your whole board after you're already swung with it, and say your opponent didn't drop a ward or something, they're basically dead, because realistically speaking, it'll be a lot of damage. Even if it's just restanding this card, it's still 10 damage to the face. Now I didn't talk about Shinsato's evolve. Say this card lives, you don't want it living, but say it lives. On evolve, you can summon any 8 cost or less from your cemetery to the board. Definitely kill this card, because you don't want the evolve going. Now I will say 6 is a very heavy. So for 6, if you're just getting 1 guy out, which you're cheating a guy out, and if you want to play into that, sure, because they're wasting their whole turn to basically get like 1 single card out. But say they get out this card and then they just kind of start rolling, you don't want that happening. So I think the only card I didn't talk about here is the bouncing, the bottom decking card. This is Yumi. Basically her evolve lets you bottom deck a 3 or less defense card, which is pretty good. You can kind of ping something down, like you can ping something down with her, like just her lesson ability, and then just use this to kind of bottom deck it for the evolve if you want to go down that path. Like that might happen. I didn't talk about Miri too much. You just discard a passion to draw 2, just a drawing card. That's basically all the deck. My favorite is passion. I just really like the play style. I really enjoy the high roll aspect of it. It just feels really annoying and hard to fight into. It's really fun to play as well. I think Q's my least favorite because it's the most boring to play, but also maybe it's just my play style. I'm not as into like turtle decks, and I do believe Cool is the strongest of the 3. I think Passion's not that far behind. Passion just has a little bit of a if you low roll, you roll type of thing. You high roll type of thing. It's like one of those decks where it's like really strong and really weak at the same time. Also, again, into like board clearing decks, like Passion ends up being a little too slow. You'll also notice Passion has not that many 1-drops. So does Cute. But Cute also has a lot of healing. Passion has less healing and less like things to do early on. You're basically just drawing cards and calling a board and drawing cards and calling a board, but you're not really doing anything else. You're not killing. You're not really applying that much pressure until about turn 4 to 6. You kind of start doing stuff, right? So that's a lot of time for your opponent to kind of catch up. I hope this was informative to you. If you have any ideas or thoughts or whatever, you can leave them below in the comments. 50cards.shop. I lost my trial deck footage that I had when I opened all of these. I don't have anymore. I got all my cards from him, so big shout out to 50 cards. You also can get your cards and all your stuff and everything you need from him. Code Orange to save yourself some money. And then, guys, like I said, I hope this was informative. Subscribe if it was informative and helped you out in any of your thoughts, or if something I said today helped you learn. Subscribe. I am trying to hit the 5K by the end of the year. That is our goal for 2024, is to get to 5K. So help me out get there. And as always, I will just be presenting more content to you as the weeks go. So yeah. For that, guys, peace out. Das vidania. See you guys in a future video. Bye.